Welcome back, everybody. You got Will and I-Man here from the Block Runner, MetaZone, Rovi, and MScribe, and today we're going to be going through some ordinal theory, ordinal
intro, dude.
Yeah, there we go.
Put on your professor cap.
It's usually on, dude.
No. Actually, put it on.
It's not?
I guess it is. We do attempt to educate as much as we can, right?
Yeah.
But actually, like, imagine you're like at the University of Bitcoin. You know, if there was such a thing.
Yeah.
And, Satoshi himself was like, we need to onboard some professors that knows their shit about ordinals, right? Because, there's a lot of students enrolling. They're like, yo, I want to know about ordinals. Your university curriculum sucks. Because you don't incorporate ordinals, Satoshi.
Yeah.
It's like, fine, fuck it. It's like, we'll hit up those block runner guys.
Okay. We've been contracted by Satoshi.
We've been contracted.
Okay.
And, now you're in the auditorium. You're the professor.
All right.
In front of the chalkboard. No, we don't have one, unfortunately.
I got my laser pointer.
Right. And then everybody's in the auditorium literally about to sleep. So what would you tell? Like, how do you inform these kids about ordinals?
You guys remember what happened with NFTs on Ethereum a few years ago? They're like, yeah, I remember that. It's a big show of like on-chain art, right?
Yeah.
It's like, well, they weren't on-chain. But you know what's happening on Bitcoin? Actually on-chain art.
Right. And it's on Bitcoin. Did we mention it's Bitcoin?
It's Bitcoin, yeah.
Right.
And these NFTs are not called NFTs, they're called artifacts.
Correct. So yeah, that is largely the thing that pulled us in about a year ago.
Yeah.
Into this space. Because we lived in NFT land for 3 years.
Yeah, we heard artifacts. I was like, well, isn't that just NFTs on Bitcoin? It's like, yeah, but they're not. They're artifacts.
Correct. So we figured, we spent the last year basically on a journey to understand ordinals ourselves and to figure out like what everybody's building around ordinals and to contribute something of substance.
And if you're confused about ordinals and the stuff that's happening on Bitcoin, don't take it too hard because it is confusing. Yeah. Right? I remember when I first learned about this, I was like, what is happening? It's like, you can do this? You can inject data on Bitcoin blocks and... Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So this is still nascent, still early, still new. But the idea of like leveraging Bitcoin for something more than just a store of value, like it actually is like a substrate layer you could generate new assets from it, right? And take advantage of these security benefits of that far outweighs anything in existence outside of it, right?
I mean,
these are thoughts that Satoshi was throwing around back in 2010.
That's right.
And then there was attempts previously back in like 2013, 2011, whatever. But here we are in 2024.
Finally, people like artifacts and like assets on Bitcoin.
Exactly.
And so let's talk about what that is. So ordinal theory. There is a book, docs.ordinals.com, that goes into in-depth like what this is.
Yeah, this is literally the first thing that we saw.
Yeah.
Way back in like February, after the ETH Denver conference.
This is in 2023, by the way.
A year ago.
Yeah, a year ago.
Yeah, we're like, ordinals, hey, there's a nice little book here handy to like, understand what it is.
Yeah, and they came up with new words, right? And so let's break that down.
Yeah.
So in ordinal theory, this guy Casey Rodarmore, he came up with this theory that said, hey, Bitcoin has this method to generate these Bitcoins per block, right? And it's what if, we could name each Satoshi within a Bitcoin and give it its own ID. That would effectively make Bitcoin from a fungible token to a non-fungible token, right? Because each Satoshi within the blockchain has its own identification and therefore is unique from the next one next to it.
Yeah, and keep in mind there's 100 million sats.
There's 100 million sats per Bitcoin.
And then, correct. And every 4 years, the amount of Bitcoin being distributed per block
is halved.
So there's a lot of intricacies. Definitely go watch like a what is Bitcoin video before you get into like what is ordinals and such. I don't think we're gonna make that series.
No, definitly not.
What is Bitcoin?
No, Satoshi is just paying us for ordinals. So
correct. Yeah, that's a whole different course.
Yeah,
a whole different professor.
Yeah. All right. So finally, we've established we have these Satoshis, and they're entered into a sequential order. Right, we have block 1, and then we have block 2. We have for the first 50 Bitcoins, and then we have the second 50 Bitcoins. And then we know that each Bitcoin has 100 million sats. Yeah. Right? So now each Satoshi within the Bitcoin is now identified with its own ID. That is what an ordinal is. It is called the ordinal I think ordinal theory or something like that. Like there's an actual numeric like term to represent the satoshis, but yeah, so that's what it is basically. And so now it's so now that you have like the ability to identify one satoshi over another, it's like, what if we inject arbitrary data into it? It could be anything, text, images, videos, whatever it is, where I can just send you that satoshi, thereby actually sending you that data. And now we've made Bitcoin from a fungible token to a non-fungible token standard through this like ordinal theory like framework.
Basically. So that's like basically now you could do things like you could do on Ethereum, like, you know, by utilizing, I guess, smart contracts and non-fungible token standards like ERC 721. So let's kind of get into what is the difference between an ordinal and an NFT, right? It's like, if we could already do this on Ethereum, it's like, why do we need to do it on Bitcoin?
Yeah.
How is it different? What are the benefits, the maybe the negatives between the two?
Yeah. So if you go back to the Ethereum days where everybody was talking about NFTs, like it was Eminem, Snoop Dogg, Elon Musk, Paris Hilton.
All your favorite celebs had a PFP.
All of them. Yeah, all of them.
Yeah, I remember those days.
And but they were slinging around NFTs. So what is the difference between an NFT and an artifact? So an NFT essentially is a URL pointer to some database somewhere. AWS, it could be IPFS.
Filecoin, I guess.
Yeah, anywhere. It could be, you know, your server in the back of your house.
It could, But there's like an ethos around it. Like most of them were IPFS because that was like a distributed storage network, right? And there's several options, you know, Arweave and such. And but yeah, like still, like during the bear market, people started to like, I guess, become aware like that's actually what NFTs were. I guess mostly led by Elon Musk.
Yeah. So Elon Musk had an interview. I think it was Joe Rogan again.
Maybe. Yeah, I think it was actually.
And for some random reason, Elon Musk just brought up NFTs out of thin air. It was like, you know that thing, that NFT stuff that's happening? Those are just URL pointers.
Yeah, and all of a sudden everyone's like, what? Really?
Yeah.
You know? It's like, I didn't know that. I thought this was like blockchains,
right.
You know. So there's the NFT cabal did a pretty good job of like, I guess, not putting that in the forefront of like knowledge for mainstream audiences.
It was the best that we had at the time.
Right.
And so, I mean, things didn't need to be on chain in order to facilitate the mania that we saw. But that's the counterpoint to ordinals. These artifacts, these assets are on chain, right? You embed this data directly within the block data, a field called the witness data field within Bitcoin's blocks, where you can inject this arbitrary data.
Okay, so what are the benefits of that, you think? Like,
well, there's a couple of benefits. It's
I wanted to do my own art collection. Like,
Yeah.
And I have my options, right? I could do it on Ethereum, which is going to give me like an ERC 721 asset that has this. You're saying it's a pointer to some sort of stored file, my art, and an off-chain system.
Correct. But with smart contracts, you can do stuff with these NFTs, right? You can make them functional. You can make them. There's logic. So that's the benefit of an NFT. The benefit of like an artifact on Bitcoin is that art is now forever on Bitcoin and cannot be modified. If you could modify it, you would break Bitcoin. It would be all over, right? It literally over.
Yeah.
Right? That $1.4 trillion asset is now worthless because you were able to modify block data. And so that's another way of saying there's no way you can modify that block data.
But there is ways you can actually, like, through reinscription, right? Like,
well, you can update it.
Yeah. That's a different word.
So that's now that's like,
getting
class 1.102, dude.
Correct. So this is going to be a 3-part series. So we're going to get into the depths of how far this can go, because it started very humbly, right here where we're at. Just, we're giving Satoshis non-fungible properties, and therefore now we can embed this data onto Bitcoin forever. But so that's where we start, right?
Yeah.
And an ecosystem emerges around that. New artists rush into the space. Like, I want to create some art on Bitcoin. Like, holy shit, like that's the coolest thing I've ever heard of.
Yeah.
Right. And then you quickly start to realize there's some serious limitations to Bitcoin.
Oh, big time.
Like massive.
Yeah. So traditionally, you would come up with like a 10K PFP project, right? On Ethereum. You draw up all the art. You have like 10,000 of these assets. And then you just basically create a smart contract that says 10,000 tokens are associated with these images that are stored on AWS, stored IPFS. Now you have your NFT project. If you were to do the same thing on Bitcoin, You would have to inscribe, and that's what you do to put data onto Bitcoin. It's called inscribing.
The inscriptions,
right? These are your slinging inscriptions at that point, right?
Yeah.
So you inscribe all 10K, then you got to spend like several dollars per inscription to put it on Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And then once it's there, all these 10K assets are in your wallet. Then you got to distribute it somehow.
Yeah.
And then you got to go to some marketplace to like list these.
Yep.
And like it's a huge pain in the ass. You spend like thousands of dollars to inscribe all this art onto Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like it's a high barrier to entry for creators. Mm-hmm. So now we've developed different ways to kind of get around this like limitations. And so we'll get into that later. But point is, there are limitations to what you can do. But if there's limitations, you just become creative on like how you go around it.
Yeah, so that introduces like a lot of what the Ordinals ecosystem has kind of been about, like over the last year, because this Ordinal protocol is basically it's spent the whole year, aggregating new innovations and incorporating that as part of the protocol standard, right?
Yeah.
And different versions have been released; they're continuing to be released. But the Jubilee upgrade, I think, was activated in December or January? I think it was January. That was like the definitive like Ordinals is like past its like testnet phase, right? So Ordinals has a semblance of maturity now. It is very feature rich, because of a year of testing. Like how do we incorporate new innovations to, work with these limitations of Bitcoin and still be able to do some of the things we're used to doing on Ethereum. So these are things we're going to talk about in our next video. Things like recursive inscriptions, which is like where you can actually literally assemble all like on-chain inscribed, data and then aggregate them into a single package, right? Therefore, compressing all that into something that is very lightweight, right?
Yeah, and that's the maturity just of Bitcoin and like the whole Ordinals ecosystem, kind of figuring out ways to mitigate some of the difficulties of Bitcoin.
Yeah, so that's going to be very hyper relevant to anybody who's like a new prospect and you guys want to participate and get involved. There's a learning curve, guys. Just like there was a learning curve to Ethereum. Yeah,
that's right.
You're going to have to figure out things are different in Bitcoin than what they are in Ethereum, right? We had to get confronted by that, and it's like, it is pretty shocking how different things can get.
Very different.
Yeah, but it is interesting. And like we said, the benefit of it is security and like having your assets forever on chain.
Yeah.
In like the most valuable of blockchain networks on earth, right?
Yeah, and so because we have so many people partaking and building on Bitcoin, we've come up with different meta protocols. Yeah. So what is a meta protocol? So we have the Ordinal theory as the protocol, right? It's basically a Git book. It's an Ord wallet that you run on a server to kind of support the whole Ordinals ecosystem, and you can if you have a server, you can create a service of people using your server to inscribe data onto Bitcoin, right? And so you could use the Ord wallet, which is the invention, it is the basis of the Ordinal theory, to inscribe stuff onto Bitcoin, right? So, but then you have meta protocols, which sits on top of the Ord wallet. Meta protocols such as BRC20, that's the first meta protocol, right? That gave the kind of like the starting point of like the concept of meta protocols onto Bitcoin, right? And so we have TAP, we have CBRC20s, we have DMT, digital matter theory. These are all different meta protocols that do different things, and so all that is just it sits on the layer on top of the Ord wallet, which is the base Ordinal theory. Yeah, and then there's another layer on top of that is the indexer. Correct. That reads what happens on the blockchain based off these meta protocols, and then create API endpoints for developers and creators to create marketplaces and be able to read the data without having to download all of the blockchain and start doing stuff.
Correct. Very well said, dude. I'm pretty sure if you're a complete noob, you're like, what the fuck are you guys doing to Bitcoin? It's like, what have you done? Yeah. It's like a Bitcoin used to be so clean and sound. Yeah. And there is like so it's controversial what is being done. Yeah, I guess. Bitcoin. Not to us. I'm just saying, like, in general, some people, like the legacy maxi types, they see this and they see this as like tainting.
Yeah, and I get it. I get why they might think that, because now all of a sudden we can inject arbitrary data. What kind of data could you inject? Anything, right? It could be any bad data, right? Any illegal like objectively illegal data, you could do that.
But not only that, it's just like the thing they're really afraid of is because, and we've seen this happen over the last year, is sometimes these meta protocols, they actually work and they generate billions of dollars of interest, and therefore that increases the fee rates to Bitcoin, and now it makes Bitcoin basically unusable for a large segment of
or I would argue sustainable.
Well, yeah, that is a counter argument to that, right? Sustainable for the long term outlook that looks beyond just like a block reward subsidy. Right?
That's right. That's right.
So like this is it's a contentious space. It's very quickly evolving. It is maximally interesting though.
It is the most interesting.
It's the most interesting thing happening in all of Web3 in our opinion. And so I think this is a good starting point just to kind of like, get our boundings together or whatever.
Yeah.
What do you call it? Not boundings, our bearings together.
Bearings, yeah.
Like, and it goes a lot deeper than this, right?
Yeah.
And then, so that's an issue. And now the whole L2 thing is starting to emerge on top of Bitcoin. And that is a forever evolving landscape in itself. So, yeah, hopefully that helped a little bit.
Yeah.
Right?
So I guess there's a final thought here. How is this different than pre-Ethereum attempts of creating fungible and non-fungible assets? So we kind of went over that. There's like off-chain pointers, URL pointers on Ethereum, and then we have like on-chain assets embedded within the block data.
Right. But I think why? Well, yeah. So the question is like, why now? Why are we doing this to Bitcoin now and not like 10 years ago? Right?
Because of the Taproot upgrade that occurred in December 2021.
Yeah, that's what Casey like leveraged that to usher in like the ability of adding arbitrary information.
Yeah,
into Bitcoin.
and so that update occurred December 2021. Casey introduced Ordinal theory in December 2022, almost a year later.
Correct.
And then Ordinals didn't get traction until like February, March, when BRC20 really launched and created $1 billion market of fungible tokens on top of Bitcoin. So now there's fungible tokens on top of Bitcoin, on top of like the fungible Bitcoin, right?
Yeah, now even that is starting to stratify into like
a
new protocol outside of Ordinals called Runes, right? Like that is on the horizon. And
I can see why people are getting confused. I can see
trying to wrap this up into like a 20-minute video is quite
very challenging.
Quite the task, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we were trying our best to like literally wrap up a year of happening and to like just this is an introduction of like what is occurring.
It's funny, we've been in Ordinals for over a year now, and it's like it seems sort of intuitive, like how all this works, but it's
definitely not. Absolutely not. There is no intuition here, dude. You gotta spend some time and some work to actually but it's fine. Don't hear this and be like, fuck, that means I'm late, right?
No, you're definitely not late.
No, you're not late at all. Like
you're not even late to Bitcoin.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
So Bitcoin is interesting in its own merit, of course, like, but the meta protocol space that is like just now birthing within Bitcoin is for sure like the most interesting thing happening. And there's tremendous opportunity within it, just like there was tremendous opportunity in understanding what is Ethereum actually going to enable? Oh, it's going to enable token genesis, like fungible and non-fungible.
I was just going to say that. It's like Ethereum started in 2014, 2015-ish, but the NFT mania didn't start until 2016, 2017. Wait.
No, like 2020. 2020, yeah.
Yeah.
Many, many years later.
Yeah.
But ICO mania, fungible tokens kind of like took the show first.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
So, but yeah, all that, we're about to run it again on Bitcoin, basically.
Yeah.
Through the use of like this, inscription processes that are like very new to Bitcoin and the experimentation around that, right? So
yeah, so if you ever felt late to Bitcoin just in general, to the actual token Bitcoin, Ordinals is that opportunity, right? Because all that stuff that we saw on Ethereum is happening again on Bitcoin, but in a completely different way.
Yeah.
And that has different parameters, different limitations, different capabilities.
Yeah.
All that stuff.
Correct. So yeah, in the next couple of videos, we'll be talking about what are the actual metas of these meta protocols, like what is actually happening, if you're saying there's opportunity at hand, so like what are those things, right?
Yeah.
And it's very wide in spectrum, right? We're talking about art, we're talking about the metaverse has a presence in all of this, which
non-arbitrary assets.
Yeah, digital matter, which is like a whole new class of non-arbitrary creation, which
can only be done on Bitcoin.
Yeah, we'll get into that. And then, of course, following up with that, like, okay, so what are the tools and the platforms and the markets that like are helping facilitate all of this activity, right? So we need to identify that as well. And then after all that, you should have a pretty good grasp on what's happening.
So stay tuned to our next video. So this has been part 1 of theory and technicals on the intro to Ordinals. If you watch all 3 videos, 1 hour of your time you're going to get an entire scope of Ordinal work.
Yeah, 1 year.
Yeah. All right, guys, appreciate it, and we will catch you in the next video.
Peace.